It is now time to talk about Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, MLP, not My Little Pony. No, we're talking about pro wrestlers here. We're talking about the Graps and not the ongoing adventures of Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy in the kingdom of Equestria. Oh no, I know. Why do I know so much about this stuff? But yeah, this is the return of Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling as per resurrected by Scott D'Amore, who once departed TNA, decided to just set up shop and do his own thing. So establishing a Canadian independent wrestling promotion that has, as Scott D'Amore would say, higher production value, nationwide visibility. Of course, Scott has the money to do this, right? He had raised money to purchase TNA, right? So, it kind of only makes sense, when had the money to purchase Impact TNA from Anthem, of course, and Anthem ended up declining and just shutting them down, saying no, we're not accepting this. So I guess at some point where you're like, well, I have all this money, well, maybe it's not that much of a cause and effect situation, but nonetheless, there has to be something where it's like, well, we have this cash now. Maybe instead of trying to run after something that exists, I try and build something on my own, which is completely commendable. It's something that I have a lot of respect for if this is the path that he wants to go down. And, he clearly, got on the phone and called his business partners and reached out to get some names onto the show, which he did. I mean, this, the top names were all names that, a lot of professional wrestling fans were already familiar with and probably gave you just enough curiosity, if not to buy the show, to just like pay attention to what's going on, right? Well, I bought the two shows because look, as I said, and I'm still maintaining this, despite the review that I'm about to give. I am still very excited at the idea of a national wrestling promotion in Canada, of a nationwide, or at least something that will get attention across the nation and hopefully will help grow some Canadian talent and give them more and more exposure. Because essentially this show was built that way, and it kind of felt like it was a super indie in the sense that you reach out to some of the larger promotions who allow that allow wrestlers to go wrestle elsewhere, and you bring those guys and gals on the show. Meanwhile, your own guys and gals are highlighted in the mid card, because the one thing you don't want to do is just be a promotion that brings in big names and that's it. You're not really helping your scene in that regard. So D'Amore here clearly has some people that he wants to build on his own, but brought in the top names to attract attention. So at the very least, people will check it out with the guarantee that, well, we're going to get a couple of really good matches. There's a couple of wrestlers I really like on this card. So it was an astute way of approaching this. Now, was it successful in doing it? That's a whole other story. And I would say that it was over 2 nights, right? Because the Forge and Excellence event was over 2 nights, October 19, October 20. I would say that it was 60% successful at that. If that makes sense. I liked this more than I disliked it. And it's mostly thanks to night 2, to be frank. Okay. If you want a little insight into what I'm about to talk about, and or at least how I'm going to approach talking about Maple Leaf Wrestling, there's a lot of stuff that I liked from night 2, which I thought was the more successful or the most interesting of the nights. Whereas night 1, it didn't quite do it for me. You had the main event, And outside of that, everything was kind of like, well, all right, you know. But all the tools were there to generate attention. Hell, even bringing back Mauro Ranallo and Mauro even referenced it. It's like it's the first wrestling match that he's called within 4 years. And I know Mauro as a ring announcer, his mileage varies amongst wrestling fans. There are people who absolutely love him. There are people, and there are people who just can't stand him. And he's very polarizing in that respect. I think overall he did a tremendous job, but it's a very Mauro Ranallo job. Like, it felt very familiar. If you didn't like Mauro during his NXT stint, you're not going to, he's not suddenly going to warm up to you here. It was the same guy. Like, from the very first moments of the opening of night one, you're like, oh, this is I see this. Okay, this is Mauro Ranallo, and he's back, and he really hasn't changed, and that's fine. You know, I don't think he bothers me half as much as a lot of other people do. But even myself, I catch myself sometimes going, Mauro, really? Come on, man. He makes it a note to get all these, to make these cross pop culture references, right? And at some points you're like, oh, dude. So, but it's still not a bad idea, because in the minds of a lot of wrestling fans, especially considering his background and what he's done in pro wrestling, Mauro is a voice you can trust. Mauro is a voice that people recognize. Kind of like bringing in Mackenzie Mitchell, recently released from WWE. She's another face that people go, oh, okay, this is what she's up to. So she wants to continue doing stuff in pro res. That's cool. They had Sam Laterna, who had a short stint as a TNA in TNA. She was brought in for as a personality, right? And she was she was brought in as the ring announcer. So they were I think what Mauro successfully did here, and then of course Don Callis on color commentary. I think what Scott D'Amore successfully did here is that he put together a collection of familiar people. Maybe not these tremendous game changers. Like, it's not to the extent of AEW hiring Jim Ross to do commentary on a weekly basis, which was a huge get. But nonetheless, just bringing back people that we like, and especially Mauro, who hasn't been around pro wrestling at all, like he said himself, for the past 4 years. So there was something a little comforting, maybe a little nostalgic for some here, and that was kind of a vibe that the promotion attempted to reconnect with, providing old footage from matches that happened at Maple Leaf Gardens back in the day of MLP proper, under the Tunnies kind of thing, having Bret Hart do some narration. Like there was an attempt to really reconnect with the past and create that sense of nostalgia. I don't know how successful it was. I thought the little video packages that they had to sort of recap and bring together the history, sort of tie the history of today's Maple Leaf Pro to the past, is interesting, but I don't know how. I really don't know how successful we can say it was in creating that vibe, that comforting, comfy vibe, I guess. If anything, I believe that Maple Leaf Pro did a good job in trying to connect the Canadian undercarders who were there, specifically like a lot of them were from Windsor, if not all of them were operating out of Windsor. I think Maple Leaf Pro did a good job creating a sense of regionality, right? That there were people on the show that, despite the fact that, you know, maybe you didn't know them for like an Aiden Priest or Reverso, they nonetheless, El Reverso, I should say, they nonetheless did their best to create that connection, to make that special Canadian vibe exist. You know, these are, and even some of the bigger stars that were on the show were Canadian as well. So you kind of see what kind of basis D'Amore is trying to give his company. And it's not like just Canadians only, of course, but there was a strong sense of Canadian pride here, which is something that you assume that a promotion bringing back one of the most significant territories of the era, the Toronto territory, bringing that back and hoping that it shines on a national level, well, then you sort of look at this and you're like, well, they did a good job here. They did a good job to highlight Canadian talent, even though, well, we'll get to that in a bit. Even though, you know, there's always got to be a caveat with Warren, right? Warren can't just be happy. He's always got to point out the stuff. Well, you know, what do you want from me? You want a review. You want a proper review, right? You don't want me sitting here, you know, slapping hands and, you know, being performative and just jumping up and down and screaming MLP, right? You want proper knowledge. You want, so, you know, proper insights, I guess I should say, as opposed to proper knowledge. But you want some insights here. That's not what you're here for. Hope not, because you're about to be disappointed. So I think the best way to go about it is to start diving in. Like I said, 2 nights, October 19, October 20, 2024. They were in St. Clair College in Windsor, Ontario, which TNA Impact has run previously, right? So there's a direct connection with D'Amore here. A lot of people on this card had connections to D'Amore. Like he's, you know, there's some TNA deep cuts on this one here where you're like, oh, well, okay, I get it now though. I know why they're here, because these people are Windsor locals. These are people who work out of Windsor. So you all understand how this all comes together once you take a step back to get the bigger picture. Night 1 left me a little hollow, and I was a little disappointed. Even when you saw the card on paper, it was pretty obvious that night 2 had the potential to be the better show, but it was still mostly the same talent all being shared between both nights. So it's not as if on night 2 there was suddenly this influx of people who weren't there on night 1. That wasn't the case. But nonetheless, I ended up watching, I ended up looking at MLP night 1, and I said, oh, well, I was kind of right. The night one card is not very strong. This was not a particularly good show outside of the main event. I think the main event was tremendous, but the rest I thought it was a very middling show. And on top of that, and this goes for night 2 as well, like, I'm not sure exactly what I was expecting. I guess I went in with a clean slate. You know, I didn't set any expectations, but after the show, I was like, you know what? This is what I should have expected. This was a TNA show. It was booked and felt like an Impact TNA show. I mean, you know, it's Scott D'Amore who's behind this. So of course it's going to have that finesse about it. But maybe this can also be an issue, right? I'm not going to hold an independent pro wrestling company that isn't going to be is not going to be broadcast nationwide, at least not from what we understand. We're not quite sure what Scott's plans are exactly. I'm not going to hold them to the same standards of AEW, and when I do the reviews for AEW and I keep clamoring, demanding, hoping that AEW does things differently than WWE. I just want them to be different, do things differently. And I guess maybe if there was one expectation I had is that maybe they'll do something different. Maybe it'll feel a little different, but no, it feels just like TNA, and TNA feels just like little WWE. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what I was expecting. I don't think this was the environment or the promotion to suddenly redefine pro wrestling in North America, right? To suddenly give us this entirely new vision. But in the way things were booked, in the way things were presented, God damn, it really felt like a TNA show. It just felt like everything else ultimately. I guess to a degree, if I was expecting something else, that's on me, because it's, this was a Scott D'Amore show. It had Scott D'Amore's fingerprints all over it. Look, if you've watched any TNA pay-per-views, Impact pay-per-views over the past couple of years, you already know exactly how this show looks and feels. Like, you already know. And you already know how it comes together and how things are. Like, you just know. I recognize that, not that, earlier in this review, I was talking about how they wanted to create a sense of, familiarity, and nostalgia, making sure that everyone felt cozy. Well, nothing feels cozier than doing something that you're already familiar with, right? You don't want necessarily to be challenged, right? Like, if you're watching Marvel movies, you're watching a series of Marvel movies, and then suddenly this one Marvel movie is directed by Lars van Trier. Well, that's going to jump into your face, and you're going to be like, oh, this is not the same comfortable viewing as I was expected. This is something completely else, Let's just get to it. Let's just get to it. I think I've set the table more than enough. How should we do this? Maybe we'll start with, I think I'll start with the main event of night one, which was absolutely phenomenal. And I mean a phenomenal match. On Cage Match right now, it's ranked at 9.31. Konosuke Takeshita defeating Mike Bailey. No, it was not for the international title. The international title was to be defended against Josh Alexander, not the same guy. Josh Alexander on night two. And this was not an eliminator match. It was just a straight up singles match. What had been previously advertised before Takeshita won the international title at the pay-per-view at Wrestle Dream. I thought this was a phenomenal match. People, I liked it a lot. Maybe not as much as the Cage Match inmates did, who gave it 9.31. I gave it 4 3/4 stars. I guess we're in the same territory. We might be splitting hairs, but listen, this one, and especially after the last couple of matches that we had, okay? This match started off fast and with some big moves, almost straight off the bat. Mike Bailey is doing dives and doing triangle moonsaults. Takeshita's doing DVDs on the apron. It's just tremendous stuff. And Takeshita here is in prime form. And he's working with Mike Bailey, who he's worked before in Japan with. So there's a level of familiarity there. And Takeshita is already, he's absolutely, unquestionably one of the top wrestlers on planet Earth right now. So he's smooth, he's violent, he's tremendous. Like he's doing these incredible feats of strength where, he blocks a Rana attempt by Mike Bailey and then alley-oops him right into the turnbuckles. Just fantastic stuff. We got Liger bombs, and Bailey is doing his usual stuff, but he's good. He's in a good spot. He's looking great. Doing shooting star leg drops and destroyers. Takeshita does the windmill Germans, and Mike Bailey kicks out at one. There's one unfortunate spot here where Mike Bailey does goes for the ultimate weapon, and well, he executes it, but he misses Takeshita, right? And he almost landed on his head, but he grazed his head. The ultimate weapon, he's supposed to land like on the chest, and look, he just skewed off up towards Takeshita's head, and he sort of grazed him off of the head. Thank God that he didn't land with his knees on his face. And Morrow, called it. He said, "Oh, he missed." And I'm like, yeah, like, yes, it was a botch, but holy shit, dude, you really could have covered him a little better. Like, it's an unfortunate botch, but the botch was made worse by Morrow calling it out. And Mike Bailey, the story of this match here is that Mike Bailey can't be put down. He's eating all of this tremendous offense. He's eating bastard drivers. He's getting the mouth guard kicked out of his head, because of those rolling forearms that Takeshita does. There's nothing he can do to avoid the offense, but he's kicking out. He's staying alive until finally Takeshita gets the running knee strike and the raging fire, and that brings it all to a close. But a tremendous match. An absolutely tremendous match by both guys. And, Bailey was absolutely phenomenal, and we know Bailey is a great pro wrestler. We know this. And sometimes he's not in his best form. How about that? But on this weekend, he was. And I don't know if it was just because he was happy to be working for Scott again. I don't know if he was auditioning for something, but he looked tremendous, and there's reports, there's rumors going around that, TNA is shortening contracts for a lot of their of the roster, not necessarily outright firing people, but, bringing them to term a little quicker. You kind of feel that and why are they doing this? Well, to get people off the books, to basically get expensive talent off the books. And you kind of feel like a guy like Josh Alexander and a guy like Mike Bailey might be slowly on their way out and might be looking for other options. So maybe Bailey here, knowing that there are new opportunities here, that maybe, you had Don Callis hanging around, you had some AEW people, some New Japan people. Maybe he was like, you know what, maybe I should put my best foot forward here. My best bare foot forward here. He was remarkable. This was great. 4.25 stars, like we said. There were references to the Battle of Los Angeles fight that he and Takeshita had. I never saw it. Can't comment on it. Can't say how, if it was good compared to that or better or worse. I can't make the comparison, but this was a great match. This was a lot of fun. Like I said, 4.25 star. And that topped off a show which otherwise is, entirely skippable. Like from top to bottom. Let's go back to the top of the card. There were dark matches apparently, but of course I didn't see them because I wasn't there, so it's hard for me to talk on them. So let's go with the opener, which had Josh Alexander, Stu Grayson, and El Fantasmo defeating Rocky Romero, Alex Zane, and Trevor Lee. Trevor Lee, who was also brought in as a bit of a name, former Cameron Grimes. But on both nights, he was sort of tossed into multi-people matches. Like he was in this trios match on night 1. On night 2, he was in a scramble. So, not exactly the best spots for him to really shine. Like, I still don't see the big offer that Trevor Lee is proposing to the independent circuit now that he's returned to it from his stint in WWE. And this is not to say because he's a bad wrestler. I think he's a good wrestler. I just don't know what he offers. I don't know what he's bringing to the table. He just looks like another guy. He just looks like another indie guy in these environments, and good wrestler, yes, but there were a lot of good wrestlers in this trios match too. Between Alexander and El Fantasmo and Alex Zane and Rocky and Stu. You're like, what do you do to stand out here, right? Because on his team, Rocky is Rocky, right? Good little wrestler, has a ton of personality, knows how to work the heel stuff. Alex Zane is tremendous, and if anything, he had a very good weekend. And Zane has got the look. He's got the creative aerial moves. What does Trevor Lee have to bring to the table? What does Trevor Lee have to bring to the table? I couldn't tell you. This was a fine little opener. I gave it actually a good opener. For being honest, I gave it 3.5 stars. I was like, okay, this is good. You had this one spot where you had the Canadian baby faces all doing, sharpshooters at the same time, to the delight of the crowd. But no, there's a lot of back and forth in this fast-paced, dynamic match with the fun final stretch. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good way to open the show. Then we had QT Marshall defeating Bhupinder Gujjar, in which I gave the Gentleman's 3. QT Marshall is accompanied by Harley Cameron here. It's okay. It's an okay match. Very focused on QT's heel mannerisms. And Harley Cameron interferes to allow QT to get the win over Bhupinder Gujjar, who was, by the way, billed, when I was talking about creating the sense of locality, not billed, but they put over the fact that he's a Windsor College alumni, which is where they're from. So yeah, where the show is airing from is what I'm trying to say. So did some classics here to just get a guy over with the crowd. Kylie Ray cut a promo following that up. Just the typical Kylie Ray promo that you imagine in your head. That's pretty much it. And nothing wrong with that. That was to set up the next match, a 4-way match where Kylie Ray defeated Aurora Teves, Laney Luck, and Taylor Rising. I thought this was okay. It was well worked, but definitely missed some spark. Laney Luck is a well-traveled veteran at this point. Been working out of the Midwest for a while now. She's tremendous, and she's worked multiple times with Kylie Ray as well. These two together had some, you could tell. How about let's do it this way. You could tell that these two were above and beyond the levels of Aurora Teves and Taylor Rising. Aurora Teves is another Ontario-based pro wrestler who, clearly clearly, is still very indie minded. You could see in how she presented herself, how, just little things. She's not quite camera ready, if we put it that way. And Taylor Rising, well, she's very green still. I don't think she's very green. She's in, highly inexperienced. And I don't know how she's going to get better in the NWA, frankly. So, it is what it is. 2 3/4 stars for me on that one. Then we had Josh Alexander cutting a promo. But let me tell you something about Josh Alexander this weekend. They worked hard, not just on night 1, but on night 2 as well. They worked hard to make sure that people felt that Josh Alexander had a chance to beat Konosuke Takeshita. Always saying that, putting over Maple Leaf Pro returning, how, he's proud to be Canadian and this is for Canada and he's going to bring the title home. And I'm like, holy shit. To the degree where I started to wonder, just to ask myself, would they be bold enough? Would they be bold enough to pull this off and sort of expose this brand new relationship, between MLP and AEW? But spoilers, it didn't happen that way. The intergalactic jet setters, or I think it's just the jet setters now, right? I don't think they're intergalactic anymore. I think they're just plain old average jet setters. Kevin Knight and Kushida defended the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team titles, which they won just like a week ago. Well, at this point, a little over a week ago, but as of the taping of the show, it was just about a week ago. They defeated Aiden Prince and El Reverso, Rohit Raju and Sheldon Jean, and Brent Banks and Johnny Swinger. Like I said, a couple of deep cut TNA guys in here. And Johnny Swinger here, just making sure that he worked the least amount possible. I think it was, good on him. I thought it was a pretty good match. I gave it 3 3/4 star. Nothing that'll again, nothing that sets sets everything alive. But it's like when I watch a lot of TNA, there's matches happening and stuff is happening is great, but it's just there's a disconnect and there's something that I'm not just clasping on. There's something that's just not connecting. And that's how I felt with this match here. Rohan Raja defeated Jake Something to become the new PWA Champions Grail champion, or to win the Champions Grail. I don't know if you're a champion. I think the Champions Grail champion is redundant, right? To win the PWA Champions Grail. Warren, yes. What the hell is a PWA? I'm glad you asked. It is the Pro Wrestling Alliance. A couple of weeks ago, like probably like around August, right? Mid-August or something. Maple Leaf Pro had announced that they had joined forces with 2 other wrestling promotions to form the Pro Wrestling Alliance. And who are these 2 other promotions, you ask? Well, of course, the well-known Qatar Pro Wrestling and the equally well-known Oceania Pro Wrestling. Yeah, there's a fair chance you haven't heard of either. but it apparently, from what I understand, the Grail that they're pulling out, which they traced back history, brought it all the way back to Ricky Dozan, and even mentioned Kenny Omega winning it. Like, it's continuing that lineage of this title. They said that this title was going to be defended in these 3 sister promotions, right? So it's like, okay. Frankly, I didn't know anything about Oceania Pro Wrestling or Qatar Pro Wrestling. I have no idea. But we had the PWA Champions Grail match won by Rohan Raja defeating Jake something for it. It's a fine little match. I gave it 3 stars. There we go. And then we had Bully Ray cutting a promo, and it's slow and it's dull. And here's one thing I also wanted to mention. There was a lot of technical difficulties, and mostly on night 1, though. Of course, they're getting the kinks out, but there were there were technical difficulties through Bully Ray's promo, which was already very long. And, he acts, he comes to the ring and he's slow and methodical, and he's, in his mind, he's Roman Reigns, right? Where he's taken forever with his entrance, kind of thing. Just taking forever. And he took on the former Jinder Mahal Raj Desi when we eventually got to it, because Bully had this whole shtick where he was bullying Sam Laterna, having her say stuff and calling her toots, and heat, brother. And this match was dog shit. Like, this was not good. It was a dog shit match. This is supposed to be a tables match, right? And it became just a plunder match. And there's ref bumps. And QT Marshall arrives to help Bully Ray, Bubba Ray, come and help him out. Like, it's legitimately one of the worst matches I've seen in a while. Like, this was bad. It was boring. The work was dumb. But it's exactly a Bully Ray match. And it's exactly the kind of stuff that Scott D'Amore would book on TNA. So I don't know why I'm acting surprised. I didn't know why anyone should be surprised. This was pretty much it. Just dog shit. You don't hear me use that word a lot when it comes to matches, but this one here, dog shit. So he defeated Raj Desi, the Maharaja, thanks to the help of QT Marshall. And then after the match, Bully Ray and QT go after Raj, but Bhupinder Gujar from earlier in the evening comes in to save Raj, and this sets up a tag team match for night 2 because we all wanted more Bully Ray. And Giselle Shaw defeated Miyu Yamashita, I thought this match started off interesting, but then it sort of took a curve, and I really wasn't into it. And I don't know why, because I like both these women, and I found Miyu's offense to be a little soft. Was she working purposefully softer than usual? Because she's known for her strikes, essentially. And boy, she fucking lays them in. But I don't know. And the word, look, it was good for what it was. But, it's another match where I'm like, especially coming out of that dog shit tables match, I was ready for people to go hard, and it's not exactly what happened. 3.25 star for me. Giselle won. There was a stipulation here that if Miyu won the match, then the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship the night after, should say, was going to become a 3-way as opposed to just a singles match. So that's good for me. That made me happy. So that was night 1. Didn't think it was particularly good outside of the main event. Everything else is skippable. Like, legitimately everything else can be skipped. Night 2, however, we've got other stuff here. We've got some other stuff to talk about. Let's go right to the top of the card, where Konosuke Takeshita successfully retained the AEW International title against Josh Alexander. And again, they were pushing this concept real hard about Josh winning for himself, for Canada. They leaned in hard, really, to the point where like I said earlier, I really was wondering if they were going to do it. I really did. I really was wondering. And this went extremely hard, and it was fantastic. Like a great wrestling match between two absolute pros who are just fantastic at what they do. Takeshita, again, being one of the greatest in the world, and Josh Alexander being so good at it, is able to keep up with Takeshita. He's able to not only keep up, but work with him. It's just a fantastic piece of work that just capped off the show tremendously. And they're going hard. They're laying into each other. They're dropping each other on their heads, doing, exploder suplexes and Germans. And there's this great spot where Takeshita does a German on the apron, and they fall to the ground, and Takeshita's still holding on to him. Or wait, was it Josh Alexander who did? No, I think it was Josh Alexander who did it. And he holds on. And then there's a stand and switch on the floor. And Takeshita does a brain buster on the apron. It's just fantastic. And I'm looking at this, and this is a great match. And this crowd, and that's when I realized that this crowd on night 2 wasn't very good. And this was the best night of the 2. They're having these two guys just laying it out, and they're popping for the spots, but otherwise they're just sitting on their hands. The crowd really wasn't all that into this, and that it really does suck. Takeshita starts striking some more. He's doing those rolling forearms, and Alexander's just getting pummeled. He's just getting pummeled, but he's being such a good babyface here. He's trying to rally, trying to come back, doing his, it is so well done with Takeshita just ending those hope spots at every given moment. It's just so good. At some point, Alexander gets an ankle lock in. People are into it, and Takeshita, to get out of it, he does a wheelbarrow German. He rolls through the ankle lock and does a wheelbarrow German. He even does the C4 spike, which is of course his Alexander's finisher. Alexander kicks out at 1, spinning tombstone by Alexander. He does the C4 spike, but Takeshita is close enough to the ropes to get his leg on it. Goes for another ankle lock, German into the buckles, and an avalanche lariat by Konosuke Takeshita off the top rope. You know what spot I'm talking about. Just fantastic stuff. Running knee follows. Alexander kicks out. He eats another running knee. And then the Raging Fire connects after getting his headgear knocked off. The second Raging Fire couldn't kick out. But the second knee and the Raging Fire, Alexander couldn't kick out of that. I thought it was tremendous. Both men looked great. Alexander looked great in defeat. He looked like a pro, like a superstar. Here's another guy that you're wondering what the status of his contract is, how things are going to go very, very soon. You really do. This is absolutely phenomenal. After the match, Takeshita and Don Callis cut a promo, and then they start to turn to attack Josh Alexander. And in the promo, they're basically singling out Ricochet, right? They're talking about Ricochet, saying you're a chump, so on and so forth. Well, guess who made an unannounced visit to save Josh Alexander? It was Ricochet. So he chases off Takeshita and Don Callis. He's left standing in the ring with Josh Alexander. And so we finish Maple Leaf Pro with an AEW angle. Don't get me wrong. In the weekend, on both nights, there were moments where both TNA and AEW were actually hyped, right? Where Morrow would hype up Bound for Glory, and then would hype up this week's Dynamite. He'd run through the matches. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. You know, and Tony Khan, like, so, you know, you see that there's no hard feelings, that these are healthy relationships, right? And Tony Khan even, you know, tweeted out something to the effect that, you know, AEW supports its friends or whatever the fuck, right? So it also makes you wonder, you know, how, you know, with Scott D'Amore starting his own promotion, like what exactly happened? How did this pro wrestling relationship sour between Tony Khan, well, between AEW and TNA, if Tony Khan and Scott D'Amore are apparently on still very good terms? You know, it's interesting to think about. But yeah, look, Ricochet, look, it's nonetheless it's an AEW angle to end the Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling inaugural show, which I thought was a little weird. It's kind of like when Chris Jericho fought Mystico in Arena Mexico, you know, over the course of the summer, and the show ended with an AEW angle, right, where they had Orange Cassidy come in. I'm like, that's how the show ended, right? That's kind of weird. Kind of weird. You know, wasn't it Mystico's like 25th anniversary match or something? There was something special about it. Oh, well, no, it was hang on a second. It was I'm being stupid here. It was the anniversary show. And you're like, this is weird. The anniversary show, the biggest show of the year for CMLL, is ending with an angle for another promotion. This is it's bizarre. Well, they kind of did the same thing here. Anyway, so, you know, a nice little surprise to cap it off, even though I don't think it will have any real implications for Maple Leaf Pro, but I could be wrong. But that main event was tremendous. Like, I give it 4.5 stars out of 5. I liked it better than Mike Bailey versus Takeshita from the night before, which is a match I already really liked. So that was great. That really was great. They build this as a double main event. So it always bothers me. It's always kind of stupid. I'm like, the last match to go on is the main event. Don't be doing the double main event. Like, I think it's always kind of cringe. But Athena defeated Giselle Shaw to retain the Ring of Honor Women's World title. I thought this was a good match, but I think that it ran into a couple of issues. I think the first issue was the length. I think it was too long. They went 23 minutes with this match, and I think they had a 15-minute match in them. Or maybe like a 16, 17-minute match. At some point, I was like, man, this is just going on too long. This is just... I feel there were multiple opportunities to end the match that just didn't happen, and I was like, okay. And it's not because I don't like Athena or Giselle Shaw. I like them both. I think Athena looked great, and she's been dropping weight too. Like, I haven't seen her in months because, I don't watch the Honor Club. I don't, whatever, the Ring of Honor show. So she, I don't see her from week to week. She looks great. Like, she is looking tremendous. And another good defense for her. Giselle always looks the part, and I like her. She's good. I don't think she's as good as Athena. The thing is, with Giselle, I think she's sloppy. I think overall she's sloppy, but that kind of sloppy, which also makes her not bad, where it's like, well, she can work with it. Not unlike Mercedes Moné. Mercedes Moné, you can never say that her work is the crispest you've ever seen. That's not her thing. That's absolutely not what she's good for. But she somehow makes the sloppiness work. I kind of felt like Athena didn't quite compose well with Giselle. I think Giselle is, I don't think she has that other gear. I think this match was kind of proof of that. Athena does, but Athena needs to be with an opponent who can hit another gear as well. Like Athena will not raise someone to her level, and I'm not saying that she does this in a malicious way where she wants to keep people down. There's just wrestlers like that who are very good, but and have these great matches, but usually great matches with opponents who can match them, as opposed to the wrestler bringing them up to their level. Now, those are special talents, don't get me wrong, but that's the people who can do that, like Will Ospreay, Bret Hart. That takes a special type of talent. I don't think Athena was counter-working here, but it was a little sloppy, and she really did do the best she could in the circumstances. And I still think it's a very good, a good match. 3.5 stars. I think it's good. Yeah, there you go. So that was the top of the card. Let's go all the way to the bottom and work our way back up. Aiden Prince and the Jet Setters defeated Rocky Romero, Rohan Raja, and Rohit Raju. Rohan Raja just won the Grail Championship, and put him in a 6-man. This was fine. Fine little opener. Not as exciting as the night before, but good enough. The Qatar Pro Wrestling Qatar title was on the line as El Reverso defeated the champion Classy Ali to become the new Qatar champion. El Reverso, who came out, he has a mask and everything, and he came out in white and red Canadian inspired gear, and I'm like, okay. All right then. And Classy Ali, can't say I'm familiar with his work. The commentary was putting over the fact that he's he fancies himself as being rich, a noble, an aristocrat, and he's better than everyone else, one of those gimmicks. Classy Ali, who, despite the fact, he wears like a black singlet and there's barbed wire printed on it. Classy Ali. I don't know. Don't have many thoughts on this. It was all right, I guess. I gave it 2 3/4 stars. I thought the work was good, but it just lacked something. Then we had Kylie Ray and Miyu Yamashita defeating Harley Cameron and Lady Luck. This was a much better women's match than the night before. This was so much better. Where they did an angle here where Lady Luck and Kylie Ray were hugging backstage, and then Lady Luck, along with the help of Harley Cameron, turned on Kylie Ray, and this set up this match for tonight, or on night 2, I should say. Look, Lady and Kylie Ray in this match, when they were one-on-one and exchanging, they were tremendous. They were very good. It was very good together. Everyone looked good. Solid match. So much better than the night before. 3.5 stars. I groaned audibly when the word 6-way scramble came into the world, but I thought it was very good. I enjoyed it tremendously. Psycho Mike defeated Alex Zane, Jake Something, Sheldon Jean, Stu Grayson, and Trevor Lee to win the scramble. Psycho Mike, another guy, I guess working out of Windsor, might, working over at Smash Wrestling and Border City Wrestling. Psycho Mike. And I guess his thing is that he likes to do body slams. So he'd ask the crowd, first time I see the guy wrestle. So he asked the crowd, he says, who wants to see a body slam? Because he comes out, first of all, he calls himself Psycho Mike, right? Now, Psycho, it creates something in your mind, right? It creates an expectation. And he comes out and he's got, I guess, Hamilton Tiger Cats inspired gear. I don't know. And he's just a dude. Like, he's a guy, you know, he gets his eyes get really wide because he's psycho, but otherwise, he, you know, there's nothing. He's just a guy in trunks. Like, there's nothing that looks psycho about him. I guess that's what a real psycho looks like. Someone who is truly psychotic, maybe, you know, blends in with everyone else better. But, you know, there's not, you know, he's not wearing any wild gear. He's not like, you know, wrestling this extremely violent and uncharacteristically crazy style. He's just a guy. He's a dude, and he calls himself Psycho Mike. Psycho Mike Rollins, not to be confused. And he comes in there, and honestly, he has a really good showing. You know, look, I'm talking about Trevor Lee having trouble standing out. Psycho Mike stood out more than former WWE wrestler Trevor Lee in this one here. I thought this was a lot of fun. So his thing, this is his thing. This is what I was getting at. His thing, Psycho Mike, is to ask people, was to say in the ring, who wants to see, and you expect him to say a dead body, right? Because he's psycho. But no, because he's psycho, he's going to say a body slam. And he teased this multiple times in the match until he finally gets it towards the final stretch, where he just starts body slamming everyone, right? Just body slam after. So that's his thing, is he body slams people. And he started stacking people on top of each other with the body slams. I was like, you know what? This is pretty fun. I like this. I like this Psycho Mike guy. This is actually fun. Good little wrestler. Alex Zane, I thought, was tremendous. I thought he was the MVP of the match. Alex Zane was very good. Yeah, I gave a scramble match 3.5 stars. I thought it was a lot of fun. A good scramble, and Psycho Mike won. I don't think I was expecting this. With all the other guys in the ring, you know, Jake something and Stu and Trevor Lee, Alex Zane, these are all names, man. I'm like, and Mike Bailey defeated El Fantasmo in another fantastic match. Another fantastic match by Mike Bailey, and one where you absolutely saw ELP being able to stretch his legs here. Just a fantastic exchange throughout. Two guys just pulling moves on each other. ELP looked really good. Like, I'm looking at this, I'm like, why isn't he wrestling all the time like this in Japan? I don't understand. It was really good. And ELP is cracking out all of his moves, the CR2, the sudden deaths, the Thunder Kiss 86. Mike Bailey can't be put away. Just a great, and he's working the knee, the leg of Mike Bailey in this match, you know. There's a great spot, and was done with great precision early on in the match, where Bailey goes for the moonsault knees, but ELP lifts his legs, his knees, and thrusts Mike Bailey off, right? And it was pinpointed, it was great. And Mike Bailey sells like his shins were destroyed. It was a fantastic sell on his part, and that plagued him throughout the match. Sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more. You know how selling can be sometimes. I thought it was tremendous. And there's this great spot where Bailey goes for the moonsault knees on the apron, but ELP moves, and that just with the way things were set up with the legs and how Bailey was selling, it sounded and looked like death. It was tremendous. Or how a moonsault by ELP. But Mike Bailey gets the win with the flamingo driver a little later on. Just a fantastic match. 4.4 stars. And then you had Bhupinder Gujjar and Raj Desi defeating Bully Ray and QT Marshall, getting their heat back, despite the fact that Bully Ray didn't get pinned. Look, this is exactly how they cut an absolutely ridiculous promo before this match with Harley Cameron just going insane. It's not good. I don't know. Look, this is exactly the way you thought this match will go. Bully Ray barely works. Bully Ray has tricked an entire set of the fan base to believe that what he does is good, that he's a good pro wrestler because he works for the Heat, that being slow and methodical is good for the Heat, when in fact, he cannot work. He can't work. And there's a lot of Bully Ray shtick in this, a lot of clasping his nuts. Like literally, he even does a nerve hold. You excited? You excited now? Did I get your attention? You want to go watch Bully Ray pulling nerve holds? And then on top of that, Darren McCarty shows up from the audience to sort of beat up on Bully Ray. So Darren McCarty he's got like colored hair now. I think he's leaning into the pro wrestling stuff a lot more, right? But man, he's got to work on those working punches. So night 2, oh, I gave that 2 stars, by the way. Another just awful match. So night 2 overall, much more entertaining than night 1. So that's why I said, and the bits that were entertaining were really good, which makes me say, like I said, like I said at the start, was Maple Leaf Pro successful in making a successful pro wrestling show? I would say 60% yes. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that just doesn't quite connect. That's fine, but doesn't have any feeling. There's nothing outside of the Bully Ray matches. There's really nothing that's terribly egregious, right? But even if both, I honestly think, I honestly think, looking at how everything was set up for these 2 nights, I would have just done one. I would have just done the one night. And I think then the conversation would be very different, at least in my regard, where I'd be like, this was tremendous. Great night of pro wrestling. Can't wait for the future. Where now I'm kind of like, well, we got ourselves a little bit of a mixed bag. And what's really good is really good. And the rest is kind of there. And if that isn't the purest distillation of the TNA recipe of the Scott D'Amore era, the Impact TNA recipe, I don't know what to tell you. This is exactly what we used to get. We're back getting it again. Now, I'm not shutting the door on it. I'm intrigued enough. I want to see where this goes. This Qatar's, this stuff with Qatar and Oceania Pro, I couldn't care less. I don't think that good for them if they've got a business relationship going, but I don't care. But I want to see where this goes. I'm intrigued enough. And like I said, there was stuff booked for me on this show. There was a lot of stuff that wasn't, but there was stuff booked for me on this show. So I'm captivated. I'm curious at the very least to see how this keeps going forward. If you want to sit down and watch it, I say watch night 2. Otherwise, look, both Takeshita matches are worth it. Seek those out. I'd even tell you, seek out Mike Bailey and El Phantasmo. That was tremendous stuff. The rest, well, it's up to you. But I don't think you'll be bored with night 2. I don't think it's, if you want to sit down and watch night 2, I recommend it. I think it's okay. You won't be bored. It's a good wrestling show. It's a good wrestling show. I enjoyed it. Night 1, you can hand wave it. Just watch Takeshita versus Bailey. How about that?